So does Switchback VR on the PlayStation VR2 live up to the hype? Of course, this is a game that a lot of people were excited about because it's by Supermassive, who made the whole, entire Dark Pictures series, which was some pretty crazy games if you played them. And a lot of people were excited about this, right? It's a game that they were saying was going to utilize a lot of the PlayStation VR2 features. It's actually one of the games that kind of pushed me over the edge to get a PS VR2 because I seen, hey, this game is utilizing features in ways that's just crazy. Like, for example, in one section, it says you cannot blink. And if you blink, the enemies will get closer and closer and start to attack you. And there's just different things like that, which is really cool, that just kind of sold me on this game. Now, you may have heard a bunch of mixed opinions about this game online, but I want to share my personal thoughts and opinions about this game and give you guys my honest review. Again, please keep in mind, reviews are subjective, right? My experience may not be yours, right? I might sit somewhere around an 8 on a game. Someone else might be a perfect 10. Someone else might say it's a 3. Everybody's different, right? And everybody's experience and how they kind of perceive things and what they kind of justify as value and quality and what's acceptable versus what's not acceptable. Everybody's going to be different. I have to say that every review, because if not, people are going to roast me if they think something different. And it's like, look, this is just my experience personally. Yes, I did get the game for free. I got it from Supermassive. If you've been around for a long time, you know that I'm always transparent and honest about my thoughts and opinions on these things. And so that's just how I do things. Again, I would say I'm a gracious reviewer. Okay, I will say that. I can be a little bit gracious sometimes, maybe too gracious. I got to work on that. But I want to give you guys my experience. So I'm gonna put on some bits and pieces of the game in the background. If you don't want to see that, then maybe just kind of tune that out visually and just listen to the review, because I'm not going to say anything too spoilery, but I will talk about some of the features and everything like that. And I'm going to tell you guys, what to expect from the game. So first things first, how long is the game? It's about 3 to 4 hours, give or take. So you got about 10 levels, and each level is split up into about 20-minute segments, right? So each level is going to take you about 20 minutes to beat. So do keep that in mind. About 20 minutes. Well, again, it can vary. Some of the levels took me closer to maybe like 17-ish minutes, especially the last level. The last level was actually a little bit shorter, and the very first level is more like a training tutorial level, but it's still a level nonetheless that takes you through the entirety of just what to expect mechanically from the game. So all that to say, like I said, you're gonna expect about 10 levels, and so you got your first level, which is more of an intro, and then the next 2 are going to be themed off of Man of Medan. The 2 after that are going to be themed off the game Little Hope. The 2 after that are going to be themed off of House of Ashes. The 2 after that are going to be themed off of The Devil and Me, and then the final level is just kind of a culmination of everything going on in the game and kind of a grand conclusion with a final boss fight. So basically the way that these sections work, right, is like, if you noticed, I said there's 2 levels per Dark Pictures game, right, going from Man of Medan all the way through to The Devil and Me. And so the second level for each one ends with a different kind of boss fight, if you will. You're gonna have a boss fight at the end of each one, and it's really cool. But along this kind of journey, you're gonna see this one specific character that keeps showing up, and this character you'll see is kind of maybe plays a bigger role in all of this. Okay, let's just leave it at that. And so although you're going through these other areas and themes, it's like you're revisiting these areas from these different, previous games from, the Dark Pictures series, but it's like they're spinning it with its own story. And some people are actually, they think that maybe this is kind of like a bridging type game, where it's a game that's going to kind of, tease and bridge what comes maybe next, now that they're done with like the main kind of series with those 4 games and whatever they plan to do in the future, right? So anyways, all that to say, as you're going through each of these levels, it's basically a rail cart, right? So you're not moving or anything like that. You're sitting in it's like a roller coaster, which can be pretty freaky at times. It's going to go, a lot faster, and you're going to feel like, whoa, I'm actually on a roller coaster. And there's going to be other times where it's going to go a little bit slower or completely stop, and you're going to be like, okay, what is about to happen? And this game does a really good job at building your anticipation and kind of playing with your nerves. nerves. It really plays with your nerves. So if that's something that you're not really into, then obviously this may not be the game for you. It is very, there's a lot of jump scares, there's a lot of screams to be had. That's kind of the nature of this kind of game, right? That is what it's meant to be, right? So it's like a horror roller coaster type game, and you have 2 guns, and you can get different kind of upgrades as you're going through these courses, these levels, and basically you're trying to shoot as much stuff, destroy as much stuff as you can, get some points, accumulate some points, and get a high score. But at the same time, there's all these different enemies that are going to show up at different times, all these different kinds of enemies, and and they're going to show up in ways that are going to really freak you out. So there's going to be sections where it's going to be like, and I'm not even kidding, don't blink. Like I said in the intro, don't blink. If you blink, the eye tracking, it works. Like as soon as you blink, it knows it, and the enemies start to move. They start to get closer. There's other sections where it could be like, don't say a word, because there is a microphone built into the headset as well, and so they're picking up on your audio. And if you're making too much noise, that also kind of triggers some things to go on, and different things like that as well. So they really use that also. There's other moments where you might be wondering, did I glitch the game? There's actually one moment I thought I glitched the game, but what do you actually have to do is you have to blink to kind of progress things as well. So just kind of try to do different things like that. Try to think outside the box. Mechanically, there is a couple different puzzles that they'll introduce using these different kind of upgrades to guns that you're going to get temporarily, that you're going to have to figure out how to kind of get through certain sections, if you will. So it does make you think. It's not just like going through a track, and there are some portions where there's some puzzles. I would have liked to see a little bit maybe more of those kind of puzzles, because once they were introduced, I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. Beyond that, I will say that overall it was a lot of fun. And one thing that you're gonna be introduced with is, while you're going through these levels, there's going to be sections where there's going to be an arrow in front of you, and you can split. The track's going to split. You can either go to the left or you can go to the right. And there's going to be alternate paths basically throughout your playthrough. So although there's about 3 or 4 hours of gameplay to actually beat the game, if you go back through the game, you can go take all the alternate paths that you missed on your first playthrough, and that's going to give a little bit more longevity, plus trying to get the higher scores and different things like that. There are also 3 different difficulty modes. So there's easy, what they call it, story mode. So it's much easier if you just want to experience the story. There's normal, which is again normal, and then there's nightmare, I believe was the hardest difficulty, the third one, which makes things a little bit more intense. Enemies a little bit harder to kill. Now again, the way they kind of just do things and take you through this is just, it builds up the anticipation, builds up the unnervingness, if you will, where you're just like, I don't know what's going to happen. There's going to be all kinds of different creatures and all kinds of different monsters that are going to show up, and they're going to do things, and they're going to try to mess with your expectations, where you think you're expecting something, but they kind of throw a loop at you, either with the timing or just like maybe you're expecting something to happen over here, and it actually, something is going on over here. All of a sudden something pops up over here, and different things like that. Like, you're not going to know what's going to happen. They really do a good job of throwing some curveballs at you. A lot of people were asking about the graphics, so I'll talk about that very briefly. My biggest gripe graphically, personally, was the fire. Any kind of scenes that had fire, the fire looked really weird and bad. It looked like basically like a flat animation that was stuck to a wall or something. That looked pretty hideous. But beyond that, the main stuff you're going to be looking at looked pretty decent, in my opinion. The best way I can explain it is, like, if you know the visual style of Supermassive with their past games like Man of Medan and all the way through The Devil in Me and all those other games in the Dark Pictures series, if you know their visual style, take that idea and apply it to VR, because VR is never going to be the exact same as flat screen, but it looked pretty solid in my experience. There are some textures here and there that look a little bit flat and wonky, but for the most part, it's usually stuff that you're not really focusing on too much anyways, and the stuff that you're focusing on a little bit more looked pretty good in my opinion. And again, everything's moving so fast anyways. It's just, everything's so quick for the most part that it's not really the kind of game that you're trying to sit there and be like, wow, this is breathtaking, this is a beautiful scenery. It's not that kind of game. I don't think the visuals overall looked bad. I just think there are some textures that looked a little flat and weird, but again, it's overall didn't ruin the experience at all to me, and the main stuff was good enough for me personally. Like I said, subjective. Where's your kind of bar and your standard? Your standard might be higher, might be lower. I don't know. Okay, keep that in mind. So all that to say, I don't know that there's really much more that I can say without spoiling anything. Like I said, 10 levels. If you do all the levels on normal, it'll take you, well, normal or not, because again, it's linear. So like it going from point A to point, to like the beginning to the end, you don't really have much of a say besides the paths that you're choosing and whether you fail certain sections or not. So either way, it's going to take you about 15 to 20 minutes per level. So again, you're getting 3 to 4 hours just out of that. And like I said, there's some replayability as well to go through the alternate paths and different things like that. If you're wondering for trophies, if you are a platinum person, there are some characters that you can interact with. I don't want to spoil too much, in different ways, in 3 different ways. And there's a trophy for interacting with every one of these characters in each of these ways. So again, basically you have to play through the whole game 3 times if you want the platinum trophy, is what I'm saying. So keep that in mind. So all that aside, yeah, I mean, the themes were great. Like I said, because they're taking you through each of the different games, there is that wide variety thematically, right? And it's really cool to see how they kind of, implemented those themes of those different games. And it was just a lot of fun, personally. So again, it's one of those things where it's like, you got to keep in mind, this is a VR game, right? So we're going based off VR games. I'm not critiquing this and reviewing this based off of like, oh, I'm comparing a VR game to what my normal experience is with horror games in flat screen. Like, I'm not comparing it to my experience necessarily directly with the Dark Pictures games, because this is a VR game. It's a little bit different. This style is different too. This is like a rail shooter, right? You're going down a roller coaster kind of rails, and it's taking you through something, and it's not the exact same experience, right? So keep that in mind. But overall, again, my experience with it, I think it was a solid 8 out of 10. Honestly, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. It's not like a mind-blowing game, but I think it's one of the most terrifying games that I've ever played in terms of horror. I've played a good amount of different horror games. I mean, I played games like Until Dawn. I played I think maybe half of the Dark series games. I missed out on the other ones. I've played a bunch of different games in the horror genre, and this freaked me out the most because I am in VR and you can't escape it. It's not like I can look away from my monitor. I mean, wherever I'm in the world. I'm stuck in there. When that VR headset's on, I'm stuck in there, okay? And that added a level of immersion and a level of fear that I've never experienced ever before. And again, they utilize all the features with the eye tracking, the haptics in the headset, where you're going to feel things like there's going to be portions where you're also going to have to move. You have to duck, you have to move to the left, move to the right to dodge. If you don't, you're going to feel the vibration in your head. There's going to be times where you're going to go through this like tight corridor with these hands kind of that are kind of drooping down, and you're going to feel those fingers running across your head kind of thing through the haptics in the headband. The way they use the adaptive triggers and the haptics in the controllers. When you have a shotgun, you really feel the kick of that thing, as opposed to when you just have your normal pistol. Different things like that. So I think the overall experience is really good. Again, I'm trying to give you as much information as possible and my experience as possible without spoiling anything. If there's anything you're wondering, you want to ask any questions, leave them down in the comment section below. I'll do my very best to answer them, but I think that covers the majority of it. So again, I'm giving this game an 8 out of 10, personally speaking. Maybe you're going to give it a little bit higher, maybe a little bit lower, but I really enjoyed my experience with it. And again, for the price, it's like what, 40 to 50 bucks, depending. I think it's like 53 bucks Canadian, which I assume is probably around 40 to 45 dollars USD. So for the price, I think it's worth that price for sure. If it was like an $80 game, then I'd be a little bit more skeptical, but it's not. It's a fairly priced game for what you're getting, and again, it's going to freak you out. So if you want to get freaked out, if you want to scream like crazy, if you want to be terrified, if you like that kind of thing, that adrenaline, then this is the game for you. If you're not into that, then obviously that's maybe not your genre of game. But let me know if you have any questions. If you enjoyed this one, stick around for more. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed it. If you didn't like it, let me know why, so I can improve the content in the future. And I'll see you guys soon in another one. Till then, game on, and thanks for watching.